What do I need stats?
Why do we need stats? Oh my goodness. Oh, Ario, hey, it's October the 25th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. I completely botched that intro, but that's okay. I'm Gerissar, a WoW podcaster, kinda?
I am Bigmoran. I'm a role player and a PvPer, which makes me a role play PvPer.
Wow. I'm TreesapJake, and I'm a League of Legends refugee.
League of Legends, what?
Disgusting.
Yeah. I felt like changing that every single time. Like, I don't know. I got in the mood last podcast to be like, you know what? I'm just going to change mine every single time. I want to be something new.
I love it.
Be what I like.
Yeah, just do what you like. I love it. I just have a question. Everybody raise your hand. Who, actually, I guess you guys don't have live cameras, so even at home, who here queues up as a healer and then turns into DPS when they're doing the holiday?
Oh, me every single time. I mean, it's as long as you're not doing the headless horseman with the affixes or whatever. I think it's pretty easy. Like I don't know. I mean, with the affixes, it can be, I guess, a little bit tough. I wouldn't do it then, but it seems like now most groups just kind of like go straight to the boss. They don't even turn on the debuffs.
Well, I think it's because the debuffs don't actually seem to gain chance up. It's like an extra 1% or something, it seems like.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. People heal in the holiday dungeon? Question mark? Yeah, you're right. How about you, Jake? Do you queue as a different role for a shorter queue time, only to like DPS or?
I mean, that would assume that I do anything other than DPSing. I have I used to do that. I did that for leveling. A lot of my Dragonflight leveling was done as tank or healer on certain specs. Like I actually didn't do that on my elemental because I leveled through the zones, and I did the same thing on my Shadow Priest. But on a lot of other things, like I think my Feral, I think my DK, I leveled as a Blood or as Bear tank. Just because it was just easier to get queues. You know?
Yeah, but you didn't change back to what your preferred spec was once the queue popped and you're in the dungeon, though.
Oh, no, wait, hold on. Is that a thing you can do?
Yeah.
I'm so out of touch. Oh, my God.
That's what Big's talking about. He queues as a healer, so he gets the 1 minute queue, and then once he gets into the Headless Horseman, he swaps out back to DPS. And there he's like, why are you healing me?
That's very sneaky. I feel like the biggest thing with Dragonflight and Modern WoW is that everyone does every single role, so it doesn't matter. Like healers, DPS heal, DPS tank, but then die. Like I just think everyone's doing the same role. So,
well, it's crazy. Like in Mythic Plus, at least, like tanks do more healing than healers. Like a lot of the time, it's really weird. I don't even know what the role of a healer is. Truly, like it's just kind of there. It's like a totem.
Mm-hmm. As a prop paladin, I completely know what that means.
You know what? I think it all started with the invention of Preg. The Preg paladin.
We can talk about that.
All right. We can. Well, let's instead of we getting like completely off the rails at the go like we normally do, let's at least do the Greed Pass because I want to see what Jake came up with. So let's do that as soon as I click on. Oh, there it is.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, Harry.
There we go. Need Greed and Pass. You guys know how this goes. Jake's going to present a scenario with 3 options. We're going to take rounds at Need, Greed, and Pass. By all means, play at home. Hop on over to our Discord server and chit chat in there where we'll have a thread on that. Or if you're listening live, talk about it in live chat. But Jake, I want to hear what's your thing?
So obviously the title of this episode is about Wrath the Lich King Classic. And as we find ourselves slotting into Season 8, the infamous Season 8, the Raffle season of Wrath of the Lich King, the final season in this expansion, I thought let's do something very topical and talk about something that's important. Now, one of the big things you'll need to know in Season 8 is that obviously armor penetration is high, haste is high, we're at the pinnacle. You know, you're getting all the big trinkets from the raid, you've got all the upgraded PvP gear, resilience is high, and this is the part where I think casters get a bit more crazy, and then obviously you get Shadowmourne. So I've presented an example of 3 different comps, and I'll explain why I haven't added a 4th, because there is a 4th one that I think is really important. However, I've only kept it to 3. You have 3 comps. You have the need, greed, and pass, which you'd rather face, depending on which class you play. So think about which class you play and what you would play in Wrath Classic, or did in the original Wrath. Which comp would you rather face? So first comp, RMP. So that's Rogue, Mage, Priest. That's Sub Rogue, Frost Mage, Disc Priest. You've got TSG, which is your classic Unholy DK, Arms Warrior, H Pala. And then you've got Thundercleave, which is Arms Warrior, Elemental Shaman, Holy Pala. Now, I was going to add Lock Shaman in there. I think Lock Shaman's a really good honorable mention, but these 3, I think, tend to be the most horrible on the ladder. So those are the 3 options. Why don't we have Gerissar? Why don't you start?
Oh, why did you pick me first?
Because you don't play. I feel like you haven't played Wrath Classic.
Actually, I think my warlock is still level 58 or 59 or something like that.
There we go.
Back in my day, so as an affliction warlock is what I played back then, and what I was thinking about playing again if I ever did get back into Wrath Classic. Can I just pass on all of these? Like, ew. Who would I rather fight against? Who would I rather fight? All right, I guess I'm gonna go need on TSG. I don't know why, just cause. I guess between a Shadow Fury, Death Coil, Fear, and Succubus, I could probably CC myself through, at least survive somewhat, and do all that stuff while you got portals and everything else. So there's that. So I think that's the one I'd rather face.
Okay.
Thunder, I'm gonna greed on, because I feel like that's easily put into a bad position and just end up getting raffle stomped with a Wind Fury totem and a warrior just going ham on me. And I'm going to pass. I never want to face RMP because I still have PTSD with rogues and their 150% armor penetration, 100 zeroing me in a stun, and I feel like I just got pinned open by like a can opener and 1,000 needles. Like, it's disgusting to have happen to you, and I absolutely I despise it. F rogues. That's all I got to say. All right. Big. How about you?
So, I don't really play Wrath, but if I were to play Wrath, I'd play a mage. So I'm basing this off a mage perspective. I would, out of all 3 comps, I would need on playing against RMP, actually. I think you kind of have a lot of control in that matchup as a mage, and it's probably pretty fun. And, a lot of cool things you can spell steal. So like that. I would then greed on TSG. I think that's kind of an annoying matchup, but I think it's manageable as a mage. And then I would pass on Thundercleave, because that is like the anti-fun comp, in my opinion. Like I can just see that matchup being incredibly frustrating as a caster. Yeah. So that would be my order. So need, RMP, greed, TSG, pass on Thundercleave.
All right.
That is interesting. Very interesting.
How about you? What about you there, Jake?
As a Wrath of the Lich King classic aficionado, to quote somebody I know, I feel like it's an interesting one because all three of those comps. I mean, the correct answer is pass on all three of those comps because they're great. They're grim. Like nobody wants to queue into that. I'd say Lock Shaman H Pala as well on there is just terrible. Like you wouldn't want to queue into that if anything. So I think for me, I'm going to need. I'm saying this from a Feral Druid point of view because that's the class and spec I've been playing the most in Wrath. It is the most fun I've had. So for me, I'm going to need on TSG because we absolutely decimate DKs. So Death Knights really get shredded by whatever I'm playing, whether that's Rogue Feral or Kitty Cleave, or you play anything along the or jungle. Like you shred DKs. DKs just die. So the warrior can't really do much. I feel like very easy. So it's much easier for us to kind of build combo points, get my damage rolling, and control the other two. So yeah, that's fine. I would probably greed. I'm gonna greed RMP because if the RMP makes mistakes, they lose. Like if it's RMP is a difficult comp to play, but obviously if you're very good at it, then you do very well. But if they make a mistake, very easy to capitalize on that. Rogues do not have infinite stealths. If I've got a bleed on him, which I tend to do, he's going to come out after a vanish. He's not going to be able to re-stealth. I've got Fairy Fire as well. So if there's no dispel or if the priest has already used a spell or is in between globals and stuff like that, and I maintain that, and I'm able to sort of rotate everything, the rogue shouldn't get a re-stealth or is going to spend ages doing that. So I'd much rather queue into that than what I'm going to pass on, which is Thundercleave. And as Big as rightfully said, Thundercleave is an unfun comp. It has absolutely everything going for it. It purges. It's got huge damage. The warrior has 100% uptime. The elemental shaman doesn't die, and obviously with all the benefits of ICC gear and Raffle gear and what you're able to get, your haste is through the roof. You've got Bloodlust as well, so the damage output can be insane if you're left alone. It's just very difficult to kill shamans, especially with this Astral Shift talent, which you may know from retail, but it's slightly different in Wrath. It basically means that when you're stunned, you get 30% less damage done to you. So a lot of classes tend to stun or should be doing stuns. So they're just very, very tanky in general.
Interesting. It seems like we all just don't like Thunder. just gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's considered the best comp in the entire expansion, like in Season 8.
Isn't this a season where that meme showed up with the Knight of the Roxbury? It shows like the Thundercleave like bopping their way through rating brackets.
Yeah, but from what I understand, like Thundercleave wasn't even that popular back in original Season 8. It kind of just became a thing on like private servers over time. Because I think in I mean, we can maybe talk about this later, but in original Wrath Season 8, I believe like LSD was considered the best comp. Like that was what most people talked about. People that dominated the ladder. I think Mage Lock was like pretty decent too. I think Fabio, who won BlizzCon with LSD, said that Mage Lock was a counter to LSD, which there's no way. But I mean, maybe that was just a cope. But I think, yeah, from my understanding, just people in the past feared LSD the most. And I remember at the time it was a big deal. Like people just thought that was the most god tier comp to ever exist in WoW. And I mean, they're partially right. It was really good, but Thundercleave was like a tournament, private server invention mostly.
Okay.
It's really interesting how that's all evolved just from people playing the same game over and over, looking for ways past it. And obviously, Thundercleave is a comp that became popular in retail at certain points. And people, I mean, I've been playing Thundercleave for a very, very long time. It's obviously not as good as it was, but I've been playing it for a really long time, and it's fantastic and great. But in Wrath, it's just got this whole other aspect because warriors are so incredibly good, and elemental shamans are also incredibly good. once you step into Kata, the elemental shaman loses a lot, and so does the warrior. So that as a comp just goes away completely. Whereas something like LSD or LSP or whatever continues to be good. And I think it reaches its sort of height in MOP. So there's always, I think the reason why people seem to remember LSD as being so strong is because that it continued to be good going through because of how good warlocks were. I know in Kata, warlocks are an absolutely insane spec. Like all specs, probably apart from Demo, are incredible. Aphly and Destro are kind of, Destro is okay, but Aphly is just insane.
Mhm.
So that kind of balances itself out. And I think this is the thing. When I talk to people about Wrath, I'm really excited to talk about it because I feel like there are so many comps in threes that work. Like obviously, there's the big comps that are good, but all like there you can make anything work. You know, people play PHP, people play Cupid, people play PHDK. I've been playing a lot of Kitty Cleave. It's not the best, but it works. You can play FMP. There's loads of different comps that work out because the balance is so good across the board. It's just these like kind of 4 outliers are just kind of insane at the top level, and you will struggle versus some of the really good guys because obviously the comp is just very good.
Yeah. Actually, I opened up the SkullCap video we made. It was like a 3v3 tier list for Wrath. We made this like a year ago. It was based on season 5, but I think like there's some carryover to season 8. I'm looking at the A tier right now, and there's a bunch of comps. Like, you know, the S tier was RMP, LSD. We actually had PHP in the S tier, Thundercleave, and then Beast Cleave we had in the S tier just for season 5. I know it kind of falls off as the expansion progresses, but then the A tier is just stacked with like a million different comps, like any combination of things you can possibly imagine. So, and I mean, there's a lot of comps in the B tier too, but I mean, seeing that much in the A tier is like always a good sign. It's like, okay, well, you can just play whatever and be competitive.
Exactly.
So it's nice.
And it's not just that as well. Like I think threes has definitely got the most flexibility in Wrath, but twos as well. Like there's so much you can play. You know, obviously in twos you'll see it kind of be a bit more cookie cutter with different comps and stuff. But you can play something crazy. You can play like Rogue Boomkin if you wanted to. You know, you can play. There's like, I mean, I think from the private servers, double Rogue became a thing. There are lots. It's disgusting. Obviously, it's totally gross. But there's so many like things you can play. Like you can play with anyone you like. And now that they've made it so accessible, I feel like it's a shame that there's not more people playing it because there is just so much possibility for Wrath PvP.
Yeah.
Do you want me to just like click the bumper for subject analysis and we'll just keep talking?
Yeah, we should probably do that.
Stop
Open up an extra large can of whoop ass.
Oh, oops, I bumped it up too much. Anyways, I messed up the bumpers. I'll fix that later. Anyways, so guys, though, so here's Wrath Classic though, and I was listening to what you guys were talking about. This change about what we're seeing now as comps and what people are doing. Is that not more if Wrath had not moved on to Cataclysm and just kept going, would that not have naturally happened where people had just found those other comps and developed them and brought them to the forefront of just how strong they were? Do you think that would have happened? Or do you think we would still be playing, like, I don't know, it's like some of the original comps that everybody was like, this is the best, because they didn't know any better?
So I always compare, I like to compare WoW to Super Smash Bros. But I think there's a really good comparison here. So Smash Bros. was released as a physical disc on the Nintendo GameCube in 2001, I believe. And the metagame has changed dramatically over time. I'll just give you a really tangible example. When the game came out, Yoshi was considered a really, really bad character. No one played Yoshi. He was kind of awkward to play. Just didn't really fit in well with the metagame at the time. It wasn't until like a Japanese player named Amsa started doing really well with Yoshi that people actually started paying attention to the character. And now it's considered like not a high tier, but sort of like a mid tier, like right below the high tiers. And so I think even in games where there's no patches, I think that there's this human element. The players in some regards determine the metagame, and I think that kind of happened in Wrath of Lich King, at least on the private server side of things, because when Arena Tournament came out, which was at the beginning of Cataclysm or sometime during Cataclysm, and people went back and started playing Season 8 again, RMP was really, really popular. The reason being is because you had a lot of basically you had a bunch of Nordic people playing RMP. You had Marm, there's some Raikou. Like you had a bunch of people who were just really, really good players anyway, playing this one comp and just playing it all day, every day on like private servers. And so like for a while that was considered like the best comp on private servers. And actually, if you go back, there's a Rekful VOD where he plays with Marm and Meh on Arena Tournament. This was before Warmane, and he's like, "Why doesn't anyone play LSD?" Because as I said, LSD was considered the best comp, and they're like, "No, LSD's trash. It's all about RMP now." Well, flash forward to today, RMP is still considered good, but I think most people, as the private server scene developed, started playing Thundercleave more. It's like, okay, here we have the best caster, the best melee, the best healer. Let's put them all in the same comp, and that's just going to be the best comp. And so I think there's always this sort of human element that drives the meta, and that's happened in Wrath of Lich King over time, from the original game to Arena Tournament to Warmane to now. There's been this steady progression.
So, Elitist Jerks is the reason why we all got stuck on RMP being the best.
Well, I think what it was just a pop. Like you got to understand something too. It was just a really popular comp, and it was a comp that was popular even in TBC.
Yeah.
And there is some comps that were popular in TBC and even original Wrath Lich King that over time we just realized weren't that good. Like a good example is like WLD, Warrior, Affliction, Warlock, Resto Druid. It's a okay comp, but it's not going to be like a giga broken ladder comp right now on Wrath Classic. It's going to be good, but it's not going to be amazing. But if you're to go back in a time machine and ask someone, is WLD a really good comp? They'd say, oh, hell yeah, like Hoodrich is playing it. It's in the tournaments. I see it all the time. So I think just like there's the technology we discovered with the game, and sort of the way people get better, and I'll also think like add-ons play a big part of it too.
Yes.
Like there's all these sort of gears that are changing the meta irrespective of patches. And I think that's always important to remember is like ultimately the metagame is decided by the players. And Wrath, in my opinion, is a really good example of that.
I don't disagree with you. Was that Jake?
No, I was just saying, I totally agree. I was going to say Arena Tournament was the biggest one for kind of people developing it. People have played that for years afterwards. So I think, they're like clearly, we're on the same patch. Like it's still the same patch. Nothing has changed. And well, I say that there have been a few things have changed for the PvE side of stuff. Like I think they changed some interaction with Ret Paladin, Seals, and for Feral Druid, they let Fairy Fire proc Omen of Clarity, which basically makes your next energy consuming ability be free, which completely and totally changed the rotation of it and made it so much better. There are lots of things that have changed, but not necessarily that affect PvP. And that is fantastic. And what it means is that people are kind of just discovering new stuff all the time. And I think on the ladder, things are very different. Like I remember a friend of mine was literally playing Lock Shaman H-Pala. So like, a really strong comp, like top 4. And they kept losing to Kitty Cleave, which is, in all honesty, like probably B tier, maybe C tier, not a good comp, not nearly as good as it is in other expansions. Obviously Warriors are fantastic, but Ferals are so weak. They need other, like defensively, they need other things to kind of help them through. So, but they were losing to Kitty Cleave, and this was sort of, it wasn't exactly like low rating. It was sort of, midway up, and were losing the whole time. And like, why are we losing to sort of this kitty cleave? And it just is just the way that people develop their strategies. And I think that's what's so cool, and that's the reason why Arena Tournament was so popular. And I think why Wrath Classic has been really popular is that there are people are able to play different comps and try different things and find their own fun. Whereas kind of you go to TBC and there like things were slightly more limited in what you could play. For example, I tried playing Elemental Shaman in that expansion, and it was just awful. Like, it wasn't great to play, and unless you played Rogue or Lock or Warrior or Resto Druid, you kind of didn't have a good time, really. Like, you were, if you played Ret Paladin, you were forced to play Ret Pally Resto Shaman. That's all you could play in TBC. So there were certain things that you were just forced into. Whereas now I think you can kind of try anything, and it's sort of, you can have fun. And I think that's great. I love that.
Yeah, I think another really good example of players changing the meta, as you alluded to earlier, like Preg Spec. That was an invention of private servers, and it wasn't even a thing people like considered back in the day, at least from my understanding. Preg Spec, for those of you who don't know, is like this weird hybrid between like Ret and Prot Paladin. It's basically a Ret Paladin that plays with a one-hander and shield, and sort of trades a little bit of burst for good sustain damage with I believe it's Seal of Vengeance stacking.
Yep.
And then you get more healing, I believe, too, because you're getting more Art of War procs. So yeah, it's a completely new invention. Well, I say new in air quotes. It's been on private service for ages, but it's something that didn't exist back in the day, and it completely changed the landscape of the meta in 2v2 and 3v3. I don't think it's like that big of a deal in 5v5, but in any case, I mean, Jake, I'm sure you've played into your fair amount of Preg paladins, and they can be quite obnoxious. I'm assuming.
Well, it's interesting because you don't see them as much in threes, but you'll see them in PHP. Like, for example, you will most likely queue into like a marksman hunter with a Preg paladin and a disc priest, and that is really tough because you can't kill the Preg paladin at all. Like, they are impossible to kill unless you really sort of like the disc priest, so you kind of have to go on the hunter. The hunter absolutely blasts you. And then in twos, you're queuing into Preg, Pala, Unholy DK. Yeah, which is gross. They destroy healers, basically. And so that's really not fun. So those are the kind of options that you kind of see them in. And it's just a very, very good comp. But it's such a weird spec to kind of think some guy like on a private server kind of went, well, hold on, what if we combined these talents in Ret and these talents in Prot, and kind of made this sort of spec that's like unkillable, but does huge amounts of damage at the same time. I remember listening to Earpugs on a YouTube video when I was playing TBC Classic talk about, like, he was doing like a tier list of Wrath specs and was like, oh yeah, so this is Preg. You're probably like, we'll talk about Preg, but for those of you who don't know like the private server scene at all, basically it's an unkillable Ret Paladin that has this combination. I was sitting there kind of going, that sounds horrific. Oh, I'm really not going to look forward to it. But actually, you know what? You can work around it. But they are quite a force to be reckoned with.
I like the fact that is something that just the player base was able to develop and find that those neat little things. And I think that's always been the part that the devs liked. Like there's a certain amount where if something's clearly broken, they will fix it. But too often, I think the player base is like, "This is broken, fix it." When really, they're like, "Well, let's just hold on here." Like, that's just a really neat use of how somebody was able to figure something out, and once people then can figure out how to go around it, then there's always it's that push and pull, right? So it's always I appreciate that hearing that in a tier list, you didn't just throw your hands up, but you were able to figure a way around it to win.
Yeah, and I think the reason why you're getting that is because for me the Wrath balancing, at least in the final patch, feels kind of like well, like what they got to at the end was let's make everything strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not kind of like Dragonflight, let's make everything strong, or Shadowlands, let's make everything strong. It's kind of like everything has this really cool interaction that makes it fun to play and is strong in general, but there are still counter picks to certain classes and specs that might not have been necessarily put there on purpose, but they kind of work well together. Like there is a balance in that, and everything feels good to play. And I think that's the difference. Whereas you kind of like some things are kind of like, yeah, my spec is strong, but I don't feel like it's fun to play. That's what I often get from retail. And I think what that allowed Wrath players, especially those who are kind of been playing private servers, is that they're going, well, everything's strong. So, if I try something else, like the Rep Paladin that I've always been playing isn't going away anywhere, I'll try some things out, see what sticks. And it kind of works because everything's good anyway. So you've kind of come up with a new combination that's even better than what you've kind of what has been the norm. And I like that. I like that the balancing is there. Like there are, when you press a global in Wrath, you have to really know what you're talking about, or kind of have to bear in mind what you've done. Because if you mess up, and I often find this with myself when I'm doing arena, if I mess up one global, if I make a singular mistake, the enemy capitalize on that so much because every single global means something. Whereas on retail, I'm just spamming everything all at once and nobody knows what's going on. And there's so much like kind of chaos of just all these different micro CCs and whatever just going mental at you. That kind of like you sort of got to wear people down and or kind of outplay them in that with that side of things. Whereas in Wrath, if you make a mistake, they capitalize on it massively. Like if I choose as a feral druid to cyclone the wrong target, I've completely and totally lost my win condition. And I think that's really tough.
I was thinking recently, because I know a lot of people consider Wrath and like Mop to be the best expansions for PvP, and I was trying to think of like, well, okay, what made those expansions so fun? And I think when it comes to Mop, I think pretty much they gave every spec sort of a ultimate ability, like an Overwatch character. Like every spec just had like this crazy mechanic that did something wild, on top of like a pretty like well-developed toolkit. So I think that's what made Wrath fun. Mop fun. What I think was fun in Wrath, as Jake said, is like the numbers were just like right. Like you press an ability and it does something like significant. You press, for instance, Mage. You press Frostbolt. It's actually hitting pretty hard. There's no random modifiers you need to play around. You press your baseline spellbook abilities, and they're going to be doing like a significant amount of damage. And I think too, what Wrath did very well is on the healer side of things. What happens so much these days in the retail game is you can get like the longest CC chain imaginable on a healer, and it really doesn't matter because the healer has enough like recovery tools to pretty much top someone in 1 second. You leave like sort of the meme is like you leave one gap in your CC and it's like, well, you just messed up, like the kill is over. In Wrath, there's so much sort of momentum behind damage, and because of 50% Mortal Strike, that if you get someone low, you can snowball that momentum a lot easier than you can in retail. And I think that's a really fun thing, is feeling that momentum that you don't really feel in retail. Like every comp in retail is pretty much just RMP. Like you take turns blasting each other with CC and damage. One comp puts the other in a blender, and then they pillar for a minute and they do the same thing. And the game is built around these sort of execution tests that happen every minute. Whereas in Wrath, the execution test is every global, as Jake said. Like you are, if you're a priest and a warrior's on you, you get a mortal strike on you, you get pummeled or you get overpowered in your cast. Like you're in some big trouble, and that's just from a warrior hitting like 2 abilities, like 2 rotational abilities. Now you gotta worry about juking a kick. And then, even if you do, your heal is nerfed. So it's just, there's all this stuff you need to sort of play around. It's not micro CC you're playing around in Wrath. It's like micro mechanics. And I think that's sort of what makes it so fun. And retail, I mean, if I'm being honest, retail is just an exhausting experience. Like people don't like. I think Wrath and Mop are much slower games than Retail on a global basis. Like, man, you have to pay attention to so much in Retail, and you're just
Yeah.
constantly pressing buttons.
Mhm.
Whereas in Wrath, I mean, you're interacting, but it's like it's the right amount of interaction. It's not too much. It's like it's fast, but not fast enough that you can't enjoy it. And so I
Yeah.
think that's like a huge difference in these games.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's just such a poignant fact that that you have there is a more importance on the globals that you press because of the momentum coming from DPS and coming from the mistakes that you make. Whereas obviously you make like I think the biggest example of that is how rogues re-stealth in Retail. It's there's so much there. Like if they make him, if you're a rogue player and you make a mistake on Wrath and you've got a bleed on you and you vanish, you're out second later.
Yeah.
Like that is your entire vanish wasted. Yeah, you've got you've got premeditation, you've got some other things that kind of reset the cooldown, but that is one charge for that gone. That is a potential win condition gone from the mistake of the fact that you vanished like before the bleed is off, or something along those lines. It's there's just so much more that you kind of have to do. Like another big thing is if we think about cooldowns, like what Big was saying with how Mop has these sort of like ultimate abilities. I think with Wrath, like the cooldowns make sense. For example, Icy Veins isn't kind of just the damage modifier. It's just haste, It's like it just makes things faster for you. Berserk, which is a feral druid one, doesn't increase my damage. It's not like Incarn, but what it does do is that it basically reduces the energy cost of my cat form ability. So I'm not actually doing anything like that's hitting more damage. I'm just able to press more of my abilities faster over a period of time, which seems to increase my damage. But my actual damage of those abilities haven't gone anywhere. I'm still actually hitting them for the same amount as normal. My shred is still hitting people. My rake is still hitting people. Mangle is still hitting people for a large amount of damage. It does exactly the same thing that it does in Berserk. And I think that's the key point, that there isn't just a massive spike of damage and it's not trading these damage and then I do nothing for a minute. I'm doing damage all the time. Asa rogues, for example, are doing damage to you all the time.
Yeah.
Like these classes are doing damage to you all the time. And I think that's an important thing. Like everything that you are pressing, means something.
Yeah.
And that's fun to play.
That's been iterated throughout the ages. Like anytime anybody picks up a class that is like burst or nothing, they always say how that feels bad, where they're pushing buttons that doesn't do anything until they have that one burst window, and then all of a sudden it's like big numbers, yay, until they get shut down or the thing happens to die because somebody didn't respond properly. But I think that's very, very interesting that they moved away from that, and that we're kind of like, there are some classes that still kind of have it, but for the most part, a number of classes seem to have gone to this noodle and bust thing going on. I just want to kind of chime in for a sec, though. I think it's interesting that although we're in Wrath Classic, that they are still doing some tuning changes and stuff like that. I wonder what original Wrath would have been like if they had actually made some of those quality of life changes at the time, like the one you're talking about with I think the moment of clarity procs you're talking about, Jake. And I can't help but wonder why that wasn't a quality of life change made back in original Wrath. Like,
I think that's a really good point, actually, Gerissar. I think that's the thing. The question is that they don't have enough time to do so. In original Wrath, you're going through the patch cycles, and then you're on to the next expansion. They had Cataclysm to work on. Yeah, they got the balancing right by the end. At the end of season 8, obviously DKs weren't as horrific as they were in season 5. But there was they've got the balancing right. Why would they ever think about it? I mean, take Feral, for example, probably like a B tier DPS in at least in raiding, now is S plus. You've got Fire Mage and Feral Druid. Those are the top specs for raiding in this phase. And obviously Ferals are very good in general for PvP, but that sort of quality of life change came from just feedback from people going, yeah, you know what, we think this would be really good if we were able to get these procs that would change us from having to bear weave and for those who don't know, bear weaving is basically you do all your energy in cat, and then you swap to bear to continue to do DPS whilst your energy regens. And that's really clunky, and that's kind of not fun to play.
Yeah.
So that kind of, that people were doing that. That's what you had to do at the beginning of Wrath Classic. And then they kind of saw that and responded to it and went, you know what, I know that people have always been on the kind of guise of, oh, no changes, we want the original. But actually, you know what, these quality of life, they don't really impact too much, but they're quality of life changes for specs that could have used with this love at the time. And I think that's kind of the stance that Blizzard were taking, is that, you know what, we should have done this at the time, but now we get a chance to because we're doing it all over again.
I've heard, and this might just be a rumor, but I think the problem maybe stems back from original game design in vanilla, and this is just a tinfoil hat conspiracy that I heard somewhere, that when they were thinking about class design in vanilla, they literally kind of thought of the game like a tier list. Like, oh, we want warriors to be the best. We want rogues to be the best. We want holy paladins to be the best healer. I think like that's maybe how the mentality of game design at that time is. They sort of knew that they wanted certain specs to gravitate towards the top for their respective roles, and other specs to kind of not be, to not stand out. And if you look back to vanilla, I mean, like, class balance is all over the place, right? Like, warriors are like really good DPS. I think they're also really good tanks. But then like paladins, like you can't play red paladin, you can't play prot paladin. It's like a meme, right? Like paladins are healers. If you ask people in vanilla, and I think maybe some of that design probably carried over to Wrath, or they're just kind of like, yeah, you know what, Feral Druid, like, it's a niche little thing, but Druids should really be resto. That's probably the mentality they had, is like, oh, why, you have this little gimmicky spec, sure, but just play resto. And I think definitely as we've progressed through time, class balance has gotten much closer. These days it's hard to make a tier list because most things seem to gravitate around like the A tier, whereas in the past I think it was way more sporadic just because of the way the game was just initially made. From the very first talent tree that was released in the 1.0 patch, that just sort of carried over maybe until they completely revamped talents in Kata.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? I think there's just a lot of things to talk about with how the game design has affected the way that the devs have looked at things, and how I mean, like, for example, there are a lot of people on Twitter that will say nowadays, oh, the devs play warrior, like, why is warrior being buffed here? And I think there is an aspect of it where actually, you know what, potentially there are probably going to be some bias involved with how good some things are. But I think that's where Wrath really got it right, in the sense that it feels like they just went, well, why don't we make everything, like every single spec can do something? For example, I mean, yeah, there are some, you probably wouldn't get a frost mage doing PvE, but you could get a fire mage doing PvP. I've seen an arcane mage do it. There are niches there. Like, things are strong enough that you can play them. And obviously there are certain ones that are just kind of like, if you want to be optimal, you have to go a certain spec, but everything seems to work really, really well, no matter what bracket you want to do. Another thing actually that I think actually is a key point to say, in the original Wrath, after season 5, they got rid of Gladiator from 2v2. I'm fairly sure from season 6 onwards that you can get Gladiator in season 2. That hasn't been a thing in Wrath Classic.
Oh, you can still get it in twos?
You can still get it in twos, even now, which is another change that they didn't do, because obviously they're on a different patch and there aren't sort of, DKs taking advantage of everything.
Well, I mean, to that as well, isn't rank 1 is a percentage based thing, right?
Yeah,
because there's just one yeah, I mean, that's like a difference too. Like, rank 1 literally used to just be the rank 1 team on the battle group. So some of these changes kind of, I guess, make sense for the modern game.
Well, I think it's because the modern game is still the background engine to this. It just goes to a translator, right? It's not a true classic game, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually.
I hate to say it. Maybe someone's gonna hate me for this. I can't help but feel that the solo shuffle would be fun and rad. Like, I mean, geez, that seems to be the band-aid solution for anything these days. Just throw a solo bracket at it. But
they did have that, didn't they? That was a thing. That is a thing that
well,
currently exists.
yeah, it was a thing on Arena Tournament. There was a solo rating. It was just you queued one match and you didn't get shuffled. It was just one. So I mean, there is a precedent for that. I don't know how it would work in current Wrath, but sure people would not like it. But
they need to fix their LFG bug first and get LFG working again if they want to get solo shuffle working in Wrath Classic.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to see solo shuffle come in, only because I personally think that the best format for a solo bracket would be to do it as it was done on other servers, which is to do one game. And
yeah,
I understand the reservations, but Wrath is possibly the only expansion where this actually might be totally fine for that to be done. I think it would be totally fine for you to do solo one because people are going to play the optimum specs. I think they'll play. I mean, that's what people did in solo shuffle. It's not like you don't see any real troll picks on retail most of the time. People will play most of the time like a spec that is good because they want to do well. So if you had that in Wrath Classic, people would be playing that. Now you might get some weird comps, like I don't know, sort of like Enhancement Shaman Feral Druid, maybe, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't work. That the enemy team might have something kind of weird, and I feel like if they wanted to do that, they could do. I mean, who knows what they announce at BlizzCon? They could say that Wrath is going to stay where it is, and we're going to perpetually be playing Season 8, and people are able to log in and play whatever they like. They could announce Classic Plus. They could announce anything. We could get Kata Classic, but it's who knows at this stage. But either way, it's really good where it is now. I think it's just everything's great.
I want to mention. I always feel awkward talking about private servers, but I can't help but bring this up. Arena Tournament had this really cool feature, and I think Warmane had this too, where you could watch replays of your games. It was, and I'm really surprised that has never been implemented into, like, the retail game. Like, what it was is like after your game was over, you could go to this little goblin and be like, "Hey, I want to see the match I just played," and then you'd get a full like replay. You watch these little NPCs, who looked, they did everything that happened in the match. And I know, I think it was all text based. Like it was basically a text document that the server was reading and like giving instructions to NPCs to do the abilities. And I'm really surprised they've never done anything like that for retail, because I think that would be a really, it wouldn't be a game breaking addition, but it just kind of makes sense these days because you can get replays in League of Legends. In any other game, like StarCraft, right? That was the thing. You just get a little text document, and
Counter-Strike even has it, doesn't it?
I mean, probably. I think most games do, and it's so nice from a content creator perspective too. Like just having a match ID that you can just flop into a replay mode and just see the match. You don't have to like go through Twitch VODs and all this awkward stuff. I'm just there's certain things that I'm just always surprised that they've never changed with the retail game that probably should.
Well, it's a shame that they didn't get Squad OV and back when it was a thing and implement that, like fund that guy and get him involved in that. That would have been insane. This is, I think, maybe slightly endemic of Blizzard in general, and maybe it's Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, sorry, rather than the original Blizzard. I feel like original Blizzard probably could have been open to this, but it feels as if like they were kind of like, we've made this award-winning game. We don't need anyone else to tell us how to do it. And I feel like sometimes it would be good if they listened to other people and went, you know what, this actually would work really well. A Squad OV where we could check like in-game, look back at your recordings and implement that into the software, even if it is third party to a certain degree, or kind of I don't know how they'd write it into the code, but do something at least where it's compatible.
It's literally just like a text file. I think most of the time it's like
Yeah.
literally it's telling, you insert the text file into the game, and then it just replays it's a set of instructions. Like, okay, player A moved here at this time. So it's really like low fidelity, I think. And
I think it requires advanced combat logging, because advanced combat logging also records positioning. So I think that's what it also was. But I remember there was like one of the log websites had that as well. They didn't have it for PvP because, well, you could put it in, but it didn't know what to do because it didn't have the map for it. So you just have like dots on a black screen. But I remember you could do that with like a boss fight where you could load up the advanced combat file and watch on a boss fight all the dots move around and who was who doing what. And then you could see like, okay, everybody, you're supposed to move over to this square. And then there's like some hunter over and it'd be like, Johnny, you didn't do the strat right. So
one thing I want to talk about, because it recently happened, was the release of ICC. Speaking of rating, and I know there was the race to world first, which lasted, I think, under a few hours, right? Like, I think
95 minutes.
95 minutes. There you go. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I think that speaks to how much better players have gotten over the years. That the fact that an endgame boss was cleared within an hour of its release, whereas in the past, I don't know how long it took Lich King to be down, but I think it was a few weeks.
But they aren't learning anything new. Like, they just did the same strat they've been doing on private servers for how long, right? Like, there's nothing new there. If the Blizzard team had completely revamped the ICC mechanics, then it would have taken a lot longer. But it sounds like that team of raiders just did what they've been doing for 4 years straight on private servers, right? Like,
that's an interesting point, Gerissar, actually. When you're saying that, like, if they'd revamp the whole thing, I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I feel like they should go up to mop and then rerun it back. What they should do is they should get it to mop, and then now that they know everyone's kind of like, what, we do actually quite like a few changes here and there. What they should do is they should run it back to TBC and then add mechanics because they've already done it. If you in Wrath of the Minute, we have these things called Heroic Plus dungeons, called Alpha, Beta, and Gamma at the minute. And what they are is they're basically harder dungeons that have affixes. They give better rewards. So they've already added extra things to, I guess, to like mechanics that already exist in the game. Could they not, for example, have a Lich King, let's say 5-6 years down the line, Wrath Classic comes back around, and we get to Season 8, and Lich King has got an extra mechanic now, which makes the fight even harder and therefore more difficult, and therefore an actually interesting fight. Like, add interesting other mechanics to a sort of, Heroic Plus version of the raid. And I think that would be a really good thing to challenge people on content that they've kind of cleared before, but that just has something extra to it. Still the same great balancing, but just added challenges and stuff like that, which is what they've done with these Heroic Plus things. I think that would be a really great idea for them to do. That would just totally change the way that we handle Classic, and at least the Classic expansions going on from vanilla. I think that'd be really cool. Like, change that all up.
Yeah, they could even do that for Ruby Sanctum, which I think is like a raid that most people, it's not a really memorable raid, but it is technically the last raid of Wrath Lich King, right?
It's a memorable raid, which is how much everybody hated it.
Yeah, so I mean, why not just throw like some affixes into that one?
So here's the thing: do you guys think that like this whole rumor about Classic Plus is going to be Classic, but they're going to do dungeons with affixes again and stuff like that? Like, can you imagine running like Dead Mines with Bursting and Sanguine or something like that?
Well, I don't know whether it would have something. I mean, I hope not. I hope it doesn't have something like that. But I feel like it would be sort of, like maybe they'd put a bit more care into it. It'd be sort of very specific mechanics that the bosses could possibly do that are added new. Like, for example, I'm trying to think of one like Death. Let's say Deathbringer Southfang. A lot of his mechanics that he spawns ads when he gets to a certain level of energy, and when the ads hit you, they give him more energy, and therefore he'll put a certain mark on you, which does a lot of damage. Right? What happens if he spawned like another ad that was like a big ad that kind of came out and sort of like ran through you? And if you didn't have like an off tank grabbing it, for example, it could decimate your backline whilst you're dealing with the other ads. Like that sort of thing would add a whole other level of complexity that doesn't necessarily detract from the original mechanics, but adds that whole other level. And I think that would be really interesting, at least from a raiding perspective. That would keep the game fresh. Obviously, the PvP would be exactly the same, but I don't think PvPers have a problem with that. I think PvPers could easily cycle through all of those expansions again and again and again and enjoy the PvP because it's the human aspect of that makes it different.
Well, let's be honest. So PvP, aside from class changes or tuning, I mean, there's an occasional map added, but the map doesn't change really. Like the strategies have only morphed a little.
Maybe they could add different maps. Maybe they can add extra maps to like certain expansions. Like, you know what? So let's say take TBC, for example. You've got Nagrand, Ruins of Lordaeron, and Blade's Edge. Obviously, Blade's Edge is now not in retail, but yeah, so you got those three. One's if they add like a whole different new map to it.
Sure.
That's kind of like, I don't know, let me think, like a Nether Storm version, like Eye of the Storm map kind of thing. And then you get to Wrath and it's the kind of Orgrimmar arena again, but it's revamped and they've done a slightly different thing to it. Like that would be a really cool way of making PvP more interesting if they were to kind of redo it, the classic. I think that'd be insane. I think there's so many possibilities. Blizzard, hire me, please.
What are you gonna say, Big?
Yeah, I don't know what I honestly don't know what to expect from Classic Plus if it's an actual thing. I mean, I was under the impression it's it's either going to be two things. It's going to be like basically a sequel to Vanilla WoW. That's not TBC. That's what I understand Classic Plus to be. Like I think that's the theory, but it could also just be maybe an extension of Wrath or something. And either one of those outcomes I think is going to be very interesting. I think if the game wanted to be the most popular, I think it would have to be a sequel to Vanilla. If they're purely thinking about it from how can we get the most people to play this, I think having a Classic Plus that's just a Vanilla 2 would bring back a lot of players, because I think there's this nostalgia behind Vanilla WoW that even Wrath doesn't necessarily have. I think Vanilla WoW is just like this really powerful game for a lot of people, for better or for worse. I'm not the biggest fan of Vanilla, but I definitely know that a lot of people are very passionate about it. And as we've seen with like hardcore WoW, a lot of people who hadn't played WoW for many years just came back to play hardcore, which is crazy to me. I mean, never expected that game mode to be as popular as it was, but so I think I anticipate it to just be a Vanilla 2, like a sequel. That's not TBC, It's like what if we didn't go through the dark portal? What if we kept it shut? And
I think that'd be great.
Yeah. There could be new raids in Azeroth that were undiscovered, because like there's a lot of there's a lot of zones in original WoW that like are inaccessible, right? They're just kind of like gray areas on the map, and presumably like they had plans for that. So who knows?
And maybe this is them opening those archives and being like, okay, we can actually do that now because we're not going to go through the dark portal. So what do you guys think about, so there's always this argument about PvE gearing versus PvP gearing, and it seems like the true PvP purists, like who only want to do arena and only that's all they want to do, they just want to do that every day, gain all the best in slot gear for that. But Wrath seems to have a wide variety of ways to gear, especially this season being the last one, because you have those epic dungeons the three that they put in, the precursors to ICC, where you get some really sweet epic gear. You have ICC, which I mean isn't an easy raid, but with today's tools and a lot of the skills of players, it's pretty easy to get the gear there. Do you guys think that that is an appropriate way, where it seems to be more like a 50-50 split of PvE and PvP gearing in Wrath?
It's an interesting topic, really, because realistically speaking, you don't need to do any PvE to do PvP in Wrath. You could, in theory, just do PvP and you'll get all the gear that you need. However, there are to optimize yourself, to be totally optimized, you do need trinkets, right? For PV from PvE to be competitive in PvP. And that, I think, unfortunately, is the nature of the classic private servers, because they realized, okay, yeah, I think most people actually probably back in the day, like maybe some of them had some of the really good trinkets that you could get from raiding that you would have done now and then. But realistically speaking, most people that just wanted to do PvP probably would have just done PvP and had like BM trinkets. Like I remember Battlemaster trinkets were the kind of thing that people always talked about. Oh, like you could get these; they're really great for PvP, but no one uses them in Wrath Classic, as far as I can tell. Like maybe some classes, some specs do, but nobody really does. So you would just need to do PvE for the trinkets, but realistically speaking, you can't really do just PvE to get the trinkets, because no guild wants you just to be in there to get the trinkets and then go away and go do your PvP. They want you there as like a core member, so you kind of do have to dedicate yourself to that. I mean, yeah. So there are those options, but realistically speaking, you don't have to. I think you're perfectly fine and competitive just to be in PvP gear. Your resiliency high. It's just you'll lack certain bits of damage that other people will have because their gear is optimized. But that is just the nature of the game, has been played, for 10 plus years, so that people kind of know what you sort of need in order to be the most optimized. So yeah, that's the kind of my sort of viewpoint on the PvE side of it. I say this to my friends all the time, like, oh, you have to do raids. You don't have to. You can just PvP.
Okay. Yeah, I think people make a big deal out of PvE gear when, I think 90% of your success is determined by your skill and not necessarily your, having slightly more optimal gear. I guess it depends on what your goals are. Like if your goal is to get rank 1, okay, maybe you need to do some PvE. But if your goal is to just, get up to Gladiator or something like that, or 2200, I think, yeah, you can, for most classes, you can do it with mostly PvP gear. And I think there are some classes like Warlock, for instance, that I think, and Ellie Shaman too, I believe, that pretty much only use PvP gear anyway. So it's not as a big deal as people make it out to be. But I do see it. I can understand why people would be annoyed by it. Just because it hasn't been a thing in sort of well, I can't even say that, because in BFA, right, pretty much best in slot gear was all Mythic Plus gear for the most part. So I don't know.
It's trauma, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. You're looking at it through it. Like a lot of people are looking at it through the lens of, I played BFA. That was awful. I don't want to PvE again to do PvP gear. And realistically speaking, you shouldn't. Definitely not in a retail version. But I think because of how enjoyable the class balance is in Wrath, I actually find myself enjoying raiding. I like it. I like playing what I'm playing. And you find yourself a little niche where people kind of need you. And that's great. But I don't have to do it. Like, realistically speaking, I don't have to. I mean, you could even do, and sadly, I hate them so much, but you could do a GDKP if you wanted. If you've got the gold for it, you can just do a GDKP, buy the stuff you need, and never have to do the raid again. So,
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what is the alternative to being in a guild? Like, what if you wanted to get like a, Deathbringer's Will or something? Do you have to do a GDKP run, or are there like runs that aren't GDKP?
So pugging is a massive. There is a massive I mean, it depends on which server you're on. Obviously, when you're a big server, like if you're in the big Alliance PvE server of like in the EU, it's Pywood Village, or if you're like on the big PvP server, which is it's Firemore or Gehennas on EU. I think it's Fairlena and Benediction on US, And if you're on those, like there's people do pugs all the time. You can easily pug a group. Would they get through all of heroic ICC? Probably not at this stage. Maybe they might later on, but like the mechanics are a bit harder. So unless people know what they're doing, you're going to really struggle. I think that's the big difference with ICC is that instead of it sort of like, oh, if you make a mistake, you die. It's if you make a mistake, the whole raid dies. So you kind of waste people's time if you don't know what you're doing. But I've been in a few pugs that have gotten through normal fairly easy. So you can do it. Like you can easily get that. You could probably easily get a normal Deathbring as well if you do what's called soft reserve, which is where you kind of go on a website. Everyone has a link to it, and you kind of make certain reserves on things that you want. You know, you could put 3 or 4 of those soft reserves on Deathbring as well, and that means you get to roll 4 times if it drops. So yeah, you could easily do that. But I think what people tend to do, because everyone's got so much money, and obviously now there's a WoW token in Wrath, you can get as much gold as you need and go and buy Deathbring as well for 200k, which is an awful amount of money. But you could get the heroic version with people.
That's pretty crazy that people can pug heroic 25-man ICC. I mean, based on from my memory back in the day, I think pug groups doing 25 normal pretty much got stopped at like Professor Putricide. Like you didn't really go past Sarfang very much. Like maybe you kill the 2 dudes, the 2 ugly dudes in between Professor Putricide, but you never did that boss. And then you didn't do the heal. I think you could do the healing boss, the dragon. I forget her name. And then you didn't do the queen. Like so, basically, that's where most pugs seem to stop. But I mean, I would assume that like you could probably clear 25 normal with a pug, no problem these days, since people are just that much better. I don't know. I don't know. Have you seen? Do people pug Lich King 25 normal?
Yeah. Well, I've seen people do it. Yeah, I've been in groups that I've missed a few of my own guild raid days, and I had to go pug some. And I mean, admittedly, it's not been out long enough for me to do more of them, but I was in a pug group that did Putricide pretty easily, did Lanathel pretty easily, kind of stopped at sort of Syndragosa because we ran out of time. But there are people that do Lich King. I mean, if you get onto Discord and you've got a raid leader that kind of knows what they're doing, you can kind of talk people through it fairly easily. Like the mechanics aren't too hard. It's the heroic versions that are really difficult.
And the item level difference is only 13, I think, right? 264 is item level for normal 25, and then 277 for heroic, I believe. So yeah, it's like it's not a big, if you have the normal Deathbringer as well, it's like you're not losing much from not having the heroic version. Maybe a little bit of stats, but like who cares?
Yeah, it's not massive. And to be honest with you, getting the normal versions is totally fine. Just get the normal versions and then optimize your gear that way. Like it's fairly easy. So that's what I'm saying. Like even if you didn't want to if you just wanted to do PvP, but then you were kind of like, actually, I want to optimize my gear a little bit, get the normal versions. I mean, another great thing that they did is that if you don't want to raid at all and you just want to, log in and do a dungeon every now and then, you can do the gamma dungeons, and every single boss gives you a currency called Defiler's Scourgestone, and with those you can buy normal Trial of the Grand Crusader stuff. So I got a fair few of those. I got 38 of them together. So that's that's like doing a dungeon every day for like 8 or 9 days or so, something like that. You could obviously get it done in one day if you wanted, but that got me Death's Verdict normal. Which is a great trinket. You probably would. I mean, the heroic is obviously better, but it's only like, I think it's maybe sort of 10 item level higher, and there's a few stats higher. Like it's good, but it's not like a major difference. If you wanted to, you could get normal Solace, and Solace is the big trinket that kind of people sort of really wanted to get back in the day because it gave you massive amounts of spell power and MP5, which meant that healers didn't go very easily anymore.
Yep.
It's a big for disc.
It's a mage trinket.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, the mages wear that because it helps them continue to do to use their spells so they don't massively. Like a lot of the mana based classes will use that. Like it's just kind of but you can get that if you want to just by doing dungeons. You don't have to do the raid. So those are the big changes that have kind of come in with Wrath Classic that makes it so accessible. So I think that it's the biggest shame when people are like, actually, I don't want to play because I don't want to raid. Well, actually, you don't need to. There are other things you can do and enjoy the content. You're not just kind of walking around, running around, that little spot and dragonflight around that sort of, I don't know, with like a fountain or whatever. Instead, you're actually able to go out and log on and make the most out of your time. Because let's face it, we're all very busy leading our own lives. You can kind of step in and do the bits that you need to. Log off if you want. No pressure. You're not falling behind.
I think that's always been a big thing, though, and that's awesome that you don't feel like you're falling behind, because I feel like there's a lot of people that have that fear of missing out from WoW, or the falling behind the curve, where then the next time you go to do the arenas, or you go to do the BGs, or you go to do XYZ, you're 10 item levels less, so then that hit, you're behind, you're getting hit harder, you can't keep up, and or people won't take you because, oh, why would they take you when they have this other player over here that has the best of the gear, because they stayed on the curve. So, but I think you're right that 10 item levels, that's not huge. I mean, the stat difference on that really, like, it makes difference over time, but for what we're talking about, I don't think it really makes that big of a difference, at least in a few weeks. If you're 10 item levels low on every piece of gear, then that's a problem. But on one item, that's not a big thing.
Yeah.
I think we're ready for that one question, though, and I'll throw it out there. Is the one thing we would change? And I'm going to go to you first, Big. For Wrath Classic, at least, what's one thing you would change?
Well, I need to ask a question first. Is there some sort of catch-up system for PvP gearing, or are you just kind of like, if you haven't been playing Season 8 so far, are you just kind of behind on arena points? How does that
So
work?
the catch up system for it is, and it's kind of, I mean, this, I can see where you're going to go with it, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you're going to say. The catch up system at the minute is that you can get deadly and furious gear with honor, and relentless
Okay.
gear is arena points but half price.
Okay, that's a bit weird. I wonder why they wouldn't put relentless on honor.
Yeah, that's what I would have. I mean, yeah, pretty much mine was going to be make that honor, but yeah, I mean that would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so that would be, I mean, that'd be the one thing I would change, is like having a better catch-up system, because like I know right now there's like a leveling bonus. I don't know if that ended already, but I'd love to just play some Wrath on my mage, but it would kind of suck to feel very behind on arena points coming in mid-season. So that'd probably be the one thing I'd change.
Okay. All right. And Jake, do you want to extrapolate a little bit more, elaborate more on your what you want?
Well, to be honest with you, I was gonna say something very similar to Big, but I think the one thing I would change is I would have done all the quality of life changes that they did to certain specs and the kind of dungeons, and I would have brought that in earlier in season 5 in the first phase of Wrath, because it was great experiencing it as it was, but I feel as if like it would have been nice to have had like these quality of life changes done a lot sooner. And I think it would have been great to kind of see that aspect kind of come in more as they did the expansions going forward. I think there's just so many possibilities to kind of improve on what they originally did. And I think they're going about it the right way. And I feel like every single change they've made has been really great. An example of this, by the way, is that on the PTR, they were originally on the Omen of Clarity Omen of Clarity Fairy Fire glyph that it is now. Originally, that was just something that always happened when you press Fairy Fire. They turned it into a glyph instead, which made it more balanced, which I think was a really good idea. They were originally going to add a negative 5% to physical damage done, which would have been a massive nerf to ferals. They decided to revert that after feedback, and I think that was a really good idea to kind of, instead of kind of doing what they do in retail, which is just sort of nerf hammer everything. they kind of just said, you know what, let's leave it strong so that everything feels good and all of the quality of life changes. I would have liked to have seen that way of thinking implemented more like earlier on, and then going forwards. I want to maintain that.
Okay, I like it. I think what I would change, and we kind of spoke on this. I didn't really say too much, but I think what I'd change is I'd use the dev time that they have, and instead of making quality of life changes, I'd like them to throw in a few extra maps, like do add in something that's new, and do that. And I know that really grates on some of the hashtag the no changers out there, but I feel like that would have been cool. Like have some new maps that are thematic to Wrath of the Lich King thrown in there. So
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, by the way. I honestly think that that would just be, if they were to do it again, if they were to cycle through everything again, which I think they should do, that would be the best thing in the world, because the foundation is good. Build on the foundation. Like, people will love that.
Agreed. All right, let's do the events that we never talked about. Oop. I'm not sure if that actually worked or not now. Oh well, whatever. Okay. Post-production is gonna have to deal with this. All right. WoW upcoming WoW PvP events. So there is the Void GG. Their second rated solo shuffle tournament is going to be happening this weekend, the 28th. This one is an open invitation. So the one that happened last weekend was an invitational. It was just a bunch of ranked ones. This one's supposed to be not ranked ones. It's $2,500 for a prize pool. So yeah. So if you're interested, make sure you go sign up. Link's going to be in the show notes. You go over to Void GG tournaments. And yeah, I think it's really cool that this website is, I mean, they're not just World of Warcraft. They're trying to do more games and link in a bunch of stuff. But the fact that they're also going out there and doing community stuff like this is, I think, pretty awesome. So yeah. Oh, I guess, sorry, I should comment. I know there is some people DMing me after I first started talking and linking about Void GG, saying that there was some stuff that was broken and looking really weird, but apparently it's just the website was in beta and they're still doing some programming. So you might, log in and then have to like continually try to re-log into their website because the stuff they're doing in the background. So yeah. The OTK Hardcore Mott-Garah tournament. This one's huge, $100,000 prize pool. Like, and that's not 100,000 spread across like 18 players. It's like the top. So I think for a community tournament, I think this is probably the largest prizing that any single player is going to get, which I think is pretty amazing. So if anybody hasn't, I'm sure people have been following this. There's been lots of news about this. A lot of people talking, created a huge amount of chatter. The qualifiers have been going on, or there's been a bunch of people leveling. Qualifiers are going to be on the 30th, and then the finals are going to actually happen on the 31st. The server this is happening on, the auction house market is completely screwed. This completely botched the server. Gold farming, people, streamers getting gold from viewers that want to see them win. Trading, not win trading, but like farming gear and then trading it to their favorite streamer and stuff like that as well. Like there's been some pretty slimy stuff happening. Not gonna lie. Have you guys been tracking all this stuff?
I just think they should have just made an official server for it. Like, it just makes no sense. If this is so big and Blizzard really cares about it, this Mott-Garah, oh well, hold on, it's not. It's OTK. They should have. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is the thing. Like, this is the hard part about doing like community stuff. They should have done something where it was kind of like choose a server that nobody's on, and then they can't because there's only two. So I mean, this is the difficulty of it. Like, obviously there was going to be cheating. I don't know. I just feel like if they're going to do these tournaments, they need to get Blizzard to make, like, OTK should use their influence and get Blizzard to make a tournament round for them, because that was the only way this was ever going to work without some sort of cheating. Like, you're just going to have people they needed to make some rules that was kind of like, if you get help from anyone, you are disqualified. End of. That's what it should have been. Don't accept any money from anyone. Don't do anything else. Do everything yourself. Otherwise, you're disqualified. And I think that's the thing, that's how they should have been done. Because realistically speaking, depending on how many friends you've got means, how well you do.
Totally. Totally agree. I I don't like how it's been done. I feel like on the server, I feel like somebody is winning without even playing in the tournament. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's some people that have been, anyway. Yeah, there's no real rules against cheating or anything. I know there have been some players that have lost their characters trying to level it up to 60. I suspect there's going to be some players showing up on the 30th for qualifiers that aren't max level and are nowhere close to biz. Like they won't have any stuff to really compete with. So we'll see what happens.
I will say that I think it is the most interesting tournament that's ever existed in WoW. Like, it is definitely new. Like, it is a cool concept, I think.
Totally.
It's, obviously there are some problems, but I'm excited to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be cheering for Snuts. I believe in Snuts.
I honestly, I don't mind watching some duels, but like 2 days worth of duels is a little bit much for me. I might spot on to watch a couple, but we'll see.
I think you could easily just watch them for like on the second monitor kind of thing. I'd definitely do that.
Yeah, probably. I will say I do like how OTK does it, especially they do like the player interview where they go over to the green screen and they're holding the mic to like their NPC talking. I think that's kind of cute, stuff like that. But all right, well, we'll see what happens. BlizzCon, obviously that's coming around November 3rd and 4th. I mean, Big, you're going to be there, which is, I think, I'm super jealous, but kudos to you. So hopefully we get some content from that. But the event-wise, we got the Guild Clash happening. So that got announced. So that's going to be, what is it? It's a raid, it's some dungeons, and there's some arena stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Should be fun.
With the the 4 big organizations, right? Echo Method, Golden Guardians, and Liquid.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I don't know. I think it'll be fun.
I'm just glad. I'm glad we're getting something rather than nothing at BlizzCon.
Yeah, agreed.
I'd obviously want like a fully fledged tournament, but this will do. This is like the bare minimum. But it's I think it's a fun thing.
Yeah.
They've got to build back up to it. Obviously, BlizzCon was such an institution for so long. They've got to build back up into doing it again. And I think, as you say, rightfully so. I'm just glad there's something.
So they've ultimately desynced what used to be the Road to BlizzCon. It's completely gone now. With I think it was starting to happen before, but then with COVID and the virtual the virtual tournaments are happening, I don't think I don't know if we're going to have another Ultimate LAN championship at BlizzCon anymore.
It's a shame though, because surely they could look at something like Worlds from League of Legends and how much that generates stuff. If they really put it in the hands of someone that could really harness the esports side of things. Like, I'm not saying anything bad against any of the esports guys that work on WoW. I think they do a great job most of the time. Obviously, outside of my own personal opinions and thoughts on that, but I really think that there is such an opportunity for it, and I think that WoW on a LAN is so incredibly good.
Oh yeah,
like people have forgotten how good it is, and we have the technology now to make it way more accessible. It could be fantastic, and I really think we're missing out on not having that. And I think they could really make it the same level as League of Legends, because I think the possibilities there. Like, I think there is there is a possibility for people to really enjoy that aspect, even though they don't understand what's going on. The commentators can make it exciting. Yes, we've had the same commentators for the ages, but get some new blood in there, make some more lands happen, get more EU versus NA, get sort of like other countries involved, like bring back the Oceania one, bring back the Brazil one, like bring back all different kinds of people and get them there. It would just make sense. Like that'd be fantastic. So yeah, I would love to see that happen. I really hope that they get someone that can make that happen.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I want to see it. I'd love to see lands again. I remember being at BlizzCon. It was just absolutely amazing. I know esports, the WoW esports team wants to do lands. I just don't know if it's going to be BlizzCon 2. Does that make sense? So,
yeah, it does. Right. It's just a shame.
Yeah. All right, last one. We talked about this community once in a while. The trial exploit community. So this is a community that's only they'll do up to level 20 twinks using the trial version of WoW. So they're hosting another Bread and Circuses tournament. This is going to be over in the EU 3v3. It's going to happen on November the 25th. So there's more info on their community Discord. They have a small prize pool of I want to say €60. So yeah, just a little bit, but it's all for fun. So I'm pretty sure you can either have a character that you have experience locked, or a character that isn't experience locked but is truly on just a trial account. And once you get to 20, that's it. So up to you on that. But if you're on the EU, have fun there. Good luck. On to our WoW PvP news.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right, that bumper worked. Woohoo! All right. And technology is not my friend tonight. I'm so tired too. So a whole bunch of events, because obviously it's been like almost a month since we did this, because we skipped over the last one because everybody was sick and busy. So the Liquids Eve Ascension Mythic Plus tournament back on the 30th of September. Congrats to Team 5G for winning that. Excellent team. I believe it was Nagura's team. So not a big surprise. I mean, she's a world-renowned Mythic Pluser, like, and everything. I think the thing that really kind of soured the note on that tournament and just everything that happened with it was a bunch of people getting onto various social platforms and expressing their annoyance that there was no men allowed in the tournament, but then there was men allowed as the coaches to the players. And honestly, I don't see that. I don't understand why that's an issue. I don't know. It just it just throws my mind that somebody would then like try to pull down a tournament as good as what the Eve Ascension is and what it's trying to do to like raise that as like it's trying to create a non-issue. So I don't know. What's your guys' take? What's your take there, Jake?
I was just going to say, like, if you just gender swap the roles around and go, if it's an all male tournament with only female coaches, nobody would have batted an eyelid. Yep. That's the point. These guys wouldn't have said anything about it. It's just because it's all women, and that's as we all know, there is a sense of internalized misogyny amongst a lot of WoW players, and that's just all there is to it. You know, that's the aggression comes out there. So it's to be expected. However, I think it's a fantastic thing that we have these tournaments because they need to keep going. Now, I have absolutely no issues with there not being any men in it. I think it's totally fine for there to have coaches who are men. Like they're not, as long as they're not playing. Like it's an all female thing for a reason.
Well, it's not just female, but yeah, it's gender minorities. But yeah,
of course, yeah, exactly as you said. I think I would love to see that these sort of tournaments, and then also a combination. Like I would like to see a mix and match, so that we have more teams where people that aren't the majority male esports Mythic Pluses or whatever kind of come in and step up and are actually in parts of teams. Like I don't know if you remember when Snow Mixie's team played in the AWC, Like, it was awesome to see her in the AWC playing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they got knocked out, but I would love to see more of that, where there's actually, we've got a combination of teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a female WoW player in one of the classic tournaments that OTK did.
Yep,
I can't
there
remember
was.
the name of a character.
There's been a number of women that have been playing. They're unseen though, because obviously you always see their avatar, and until somebody says, "Oh, by the way, that's a woman playing," like you wouldn't know. No different than like until somebody says that's a guy playing. I mean, everybody just assumes that it's all men because
that's the community.
That's
isn't
the community, yeah, which is unfortunate because I mean, there could be a team of all women and you wouldn't know it until somebody says it. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll see. Either way, ultimately, it's kind of a sour note, but I'm glad that Liquid's still doing that and expecting more from them. Another one, the Dungeon Dojo, which is a Mythic Plus community. They did an invitational back on the 1st of October. About $2,000 prize pool was raised for not prize pool. $2,000 was raised for charity by what they're doing, and there's an EU team called Die Schnabler and an NA team Send Boba Picks. So
Send Boba Pigs.
Yeah, love it. The Armed Forces Dungeon League, they did their Fall Clash Mythic Plus tournament on the 8th of October, and they had a Ukrainian team that won actually, so kudos to them. And again, that's all people that are either active or veteran in some sort of a armed forces capacity. So not that I really researched it, but I'm assuming that the Ukrainian team was just a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers that were able to play World of Warcraft while getting bombed by Russia. So actually, kudos to them. Little thing I want to point out. So this one, it's not really an event, but you guys saw this. Polomor, during one of his summithons, he hosted a dueling tournament with a gold buy-in. Do you guys see that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Snuppy did the same thing on EU too. So Palomar had an A tournament, and Snuppy had basically the same thing on EU.
That's awesome.
And I think Calvish won Palomar's tournament, and then, some feral. I don't remember who won Snuppy's. I'm pretty sure Calvish won on Palomar's tournament.
Probably.
But yeah,
Calvish is insane. Like, he's an amazingly good player.
Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, I didn't track who won. I just thought it was a really cool event. That's a great idea though. I think like too often we're thinking about actual real cash and stuff like that. The idea of a gold buy-in to a tournament, I think is pretty cool to generate the prize pool. Let's hear Void GG. Their invitational that we just talked about. So that happened just last weekend with their $5,000 prize pool, and Chaz won first place as healer, Bigmex as the first place DPS. Kudos to them.
That's wrong. that information is wrong. Calvish won for DPS, and Whaler won for healers. Yeah.
I went right from their standings.
Yeah, that was the standings on the first day, and then they had the championship Sunday.
I can't believe this. I'm actually sorry, guys. I'm insulted for you, so don't worry. We'll take Gerissar back into a back room now and make sure that he never gets that information wrong ever again. Even though that's the first time I think he's ever got information wrong, we will make sure he never does it again. So apologies.
Yeah, it's actually at the bottom of. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom to see the results from.
I know what you guys are talking about. If you look right here on the show notes, it says congrats to Whaler for winning first place healer and Calvish for winning first place DPS.
Yeah, for those of you listening live, you're the only ones that will know this. The recording won't have actually the mistake on it because we don't make mistakes.
No,
we just fix them.
Exactly.
I will say that was probably one of the funnest tournaments I've ever watched.
I didn't get a chance to watch it. Not really.
It was really cool to watch it live for multiple reasons. I mean, one reason is people are streaming it, so you get to see like everyone's perspective. And what I liked about it is it gave you a single person to cheer for. Like I had people, I always had one person. I was like, I want this person to win the lobby, which is like different than like a tournament where it's like teams, right? And you kind of are cheering teams. And once your team gets knocked out, it doesn't feel good. But this, like, it had really good pacing. It was really entertaining. So I think this is something that should be kind of a standard. I know we had the Solo Shuffle tournament run by Blizzard at the end of Shadowlands, or maybe it was the beginning of Dragonflight. I don't remember. I think it was the end of Shadowlands.
Yeah, it was at
So
the
I
end of
think,
that for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So I truly believe this is a tournament format that's like viable for the Blizzard IP. I definitely think they should do it again.
I agree.
Really fun tournament.
I agree. Maybe if we actually get around to doing tournaments, we could do those too. That'd be
I will say this. What I liked about it is you got these goofy comps sometimes, which you never get in AWC. You kind of an AWC matchup is happening. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's like you can pretty much write the script. You're like, okay, it's RMP versus whatever. We've seen this a million times. We know exactly what's going to happen. There was like one lobby where it was, I believe, double Boomkin and double Rogue with a Resto Druid and a Disc Priest. So you had some games where it was double Boomy versus double Rogue, and even one game where it was triple Druid. And I thought, like, that's like, you never see anything like that. You don't know how it's gonna play out. You have no way of like parsing, oh, this team is gonna win. And so I thought it was really cool. The kind of the tidbit that I found like very interesting is Rudar is a Giga Chad. He didn't join voice comms the entire time because there were voice comm channels that you could join as the players. He did not join them, and he wound up getting second place, I believe, for DPS.
Yeah.
So he played in true solo shuffle fashion.
I heard that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So definitely something I'd like to see again for sure.
Just goes to show you don't need voice, right? You just need to be super awesome.
Are we going to try that? No voice podcast. Yo, guys, no, we did the last episode, no voice. Like how cool we are.
Yeah. It's just going to be, it'll just be 2 hours of like air gap.
It'll just be text format. It'll just be us writing on the text format, sort of like it'll be like a Microsoft Word thing that we're all shared. Like it'll be like our regular documents for the show notes, and we're just typing it. It's sort of like, oh, hey, Big, what do you think of this? And then Gareth will be like, well, why don't we talk about the subject analysis? I'm just typing. That's what we do. There we go. Done.
You're welcome. Now I'm imagining it being like voice to text, but if you've watched the new Shazam movie where they're dictating to the pen for the letter writing, and it's like, no, say that again. Yeah, that's really cool. Keep it up. Yeah. It's just like,
exactly.
A couple other things. So we got obviously there's hot fixes as always. I mean, it's been a month. I don't remember there being anything major for PvP though. Is there anything you guys can think of that happened in the last 30 days?
Not that I can. Nothing major off the top of my head. I mean, I'm still waiting for them to open up the channels of communication. Day 85, day 86, 85 today, I think.
Right? Yeah, I think it was. I know you're close to 90 again. Wow,
getting close to 100.
Yeah,
we're almost a third of the year. Anyway,
a couple other things. Warcraft Rumble. I just want to throw it up there because it's a mobile game. It's based off of World of Warcraft. It's the new pillar defense that they're doing. They're going to announce it. Though they already announced it, but the launch, if I remember, is going to be on the 3rd of November. So it's going to be like at BlizzCon. That actually has a PvP section to it. So you don't have to play just against the NPCs, but you can actually do PvP. So I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Sounds cool.
I've been playing a little bit. It's pretty fun. I'm bad at it, so it's hard, but it's pretty fun. Talking about some other new PvP things, we got there's the BG Blitz. So Blizzard dropped today a big blog post on this. If anybody saw that, it basically is formalization, I'd say, of what was on the PTR and in the development notes. But I think we should probably go over at least quickly. So 8v8 instead of 10v10. The idea is this is going to be a solo queue or a dual queue, so you can sign up with a healer, a queue with a healer if you want, in two's team. But otherwise, it's going to be 2 healers and 5 to 6 DPS or 0 to 1 tanks. So that's the separation. If there is no tanks, then it's not going to have a capture the flag map. So Warsong Gulch and Twin Peaks is going to be excluded. I think let's see here. Maps being all the standard maps you would normally have for RBGs. So Eye of the Storm. I think Big, you played this one more than I did. What do you think about this version of the map?
I think I liked it better than the RBG version, if I'm being honest. And I will say my least favorite thing to do in RBGs is defend bases. And the fact that there was only 2 bases up at the time and the focus was more on the flag, which is, I think, the more fun part of Eye of the Storm. I thought it was really good. So yeah, I think I enjoyed it more than the normal version.
What did you think about the node switching?
I like it. I like it because, again, it kind of takes your attention away from the nodes and the anxiety away from the nodes and puts it on the flag. And I've always been a firm believer that the flag is more important in Eye of the Storm, and so I like it.
Nice. Okay. Jake, did you get a chance to do any of the PTR testing on the Blitz?
I didn't. No, I was. I've had a lot more other things going on, and actually, to be honest, with you, I won't lie. Obviously, my interest on retail, as I've said quite publicly, quite a lot of the time, has waned. So wanting to do the PTR has kind of not been a thing for me. However, I've looked at it, and I've always thought that the 8v8 bracket or an 8v8 bracket would be a great idea for RBGs to revitalize that. I think what you mentioned there about being able to queue with a healer and a DPS is fantastic. I think they should implement that for regular solo shuffle. I think it'd be a great idea. That might improve queue times. So it'd be a good idea to kind of have multiple people be able to queue up for that sort of thing. I think it sounds great to me, but you can only tell once it comes live. I think that's the only real time where you ever really know whether things work or not.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that'll work for solo shuffle though, because at one point you'd be playing with your friend, and the next point you'd be playing against your friend.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think should happen. Yeah, but I think, but the point is that you should be able to queue up together, so that like it implement. You get more of an idea of you get more healers queuing up, get more DPS queuing up.
Yeah,
maybe
true.
improve the things.
True. Good point. Okay, so Eye of the Storm, we talked about Arathi Basin, Deep Wind Gorge. Nothing's really changed there. Well, the resource acquisition's faster. This is kind of neat though. So when you go to capture a node, it's a 4-second cast time to capture the node, which is faster. I think normally it was 6 seconds. Then you have to hold it for 30 seconds without anybody backcapping it from you. Then once you have it, then you can hold it for 45 seconds. Nobody can take it away, and then it'll deactivate. And 5 seconds later, then it can be recaptured. I think that's kind of cool. That whole like 30-second between time, though, I feel that if you're solo capping and there's a stealth class out there, good luck.
Yeah. In general, I think the biggest feedback I have for the bracket is stealth classes are even better somehow in an 8v8 format. So yeah, rogues and boomkins have a lot of autonomy over the game, and a lot of power, which I don't know how you can possibly address that. It's kind of a structural problem, but yeah. There's definitely some goofy things because of the format and
Yeah.
specifically related to stealth. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like the idea that after 40, after you cap it, it's blocked. It's on, nobody can recap it for 45 seconds, so you're guaranteed to hold it for 45. But I think there's that spot there between available to actual capture again, though. That I don't know. If you're up against a team, if you don't have a rogue on your team and the other team has a rogue, I think there's automatically a disadvantage on that kind of a map.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Warsong Gulch and Twin Peaks, the flag debuff, the brutal assault, stacks 100% faster. So every 15 seconds you get a new stack, which is brutal, but definitely makes it for a fast game. And the game is only 12 minutes long, so like these games are so all these games are going to be super fast. Like you go in, you win, you lose, whatever, and then you're back out and doing it again. Battlefield Gilneas is a bit of a typo, but the acquisition for the nodes is increased. So again, it's a faster map. Temple of Kotmogu, the middle areas of the map is increased resource acquisition. So it benefits, or it dangles the carrot that the team wants to stay in the center or in the inner ring and not go on to the outer ring, because that's just, you just won't get enough to win. And then Silver Shard Mines, they didn't make any changes because they figured that was, fast paced enough. I think the 150% movement speed is still available in Silver Shard Mines, so you can still move around really fast. But I think that's just in general because the map sizes never changed. So being 8v8, I think they added just to help make the map feel smaller, which makes sense. A couple other things, they have a few items that they added into these which help out. So there's the shield of protection. So you get a shield that gives you 50% of your maximum health as a shield for 45 seconds. Into the shadows, so it puts you into stealth with 100% movement speed for 30 seconds. Rune of frequency, your cooldown rate increases your cooldown rate by 50% for 30 seconds. That's going to be so much fun. And then the shadow sight, which is the little purple gem, stealth and invisibility detection for 12 seconds. And I noticed the shadow sight, they put like in Deepwind Gorge, they dropped those close to the flag points, so you don't have to like run away from the flag super far. You can just go a little distance, get that, and you can stand around and see if somebody's coming into stealth cap on you. But again, do that 12 seconds, you have to wait till it pops back up, so it's possible you'll still get stealth capped. But anyway, I think that's about it for the maps. Oh yeah, sorry, a couple things. Just going to run through this quickly because it's important. So you need to be a minimum of item level 330 to queue. And every item that's above 312 is going to be scaled to 472, which is technically 4 item levels lower than Dragonflight Season 3 Honor Gear. So I think that's kind of cool for a brawl. It's similar to they did that for Solo Shuffle, right?
I don't know. I don't know
No,
how it works.
With Solo Shuffle, you had to be fully honor geared in order to queue.
Yeah, there's a minimum item level.
But
I don't know. I don't think you scale once you're in the.
No, you don't scale.
I thought you did in the brawl. Oh.
Well, I don't know if in the brawl, but in regular Solo Shuffle, you didn't. You just like scaled as the honor gear would have done, but you had to be full honor geared in order to queue.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I remember in the brawl when they were doing the testing just to create some even playing field, that you could queue up and it would scale you up so that at least you were like, so if you're going up against somebody that was fully geared, you were at least beneficial or able to play. So, chats. Yeah. So they did that during the brawl version. And I think this last little piece is interesting. So although it's a brawl, they've changed the rewards. So your first win is going to be 100 conquest. Any additional win is going to be 50 conquest. And if you lose, but it's by a narrow margin of results, you're still going to get 25 conquest.
Nice.
Yeah. And if you leave, you are going to end up with one heck of a debuff.
Well, that's good. They need to combat that.
Mm-hmm.
There's more opportunities for it with a larger number of people.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't even think about levers.
Yeah. The deserter the deserter penalty that is applied for leaving solo shuffle will also apply to the battleground blitz. That's what they're saying.
Hopefully they
Interesting.
block you from both, so you can't just queue battleground blitz and then go straight into a solo shuffle. Should you wish to, you're like locked out of both.
Exactly. So then people will just have to switch over to another tune.
So hold on. The question then, with all that in mind, the next bit of news.
Yes.
What
What news is that, Jake? Why don't you just say it?
Yeah, the next news that we've got on here is that heroism / bloodlust will work again in RPGs. Will that work again in Battleground Blitz?
It probably is, because I guess that's one other thing I didn't say is they've also made it so toys and all that stuff doesn't work in the Blitz, just like it doesn't work in Rated Battlegrounds. So
Right.
I'm assuming that they're applying all the same rule set that you would have for Rateds as you do in the Battleground Blitz. So yes, so Lust will work in the Blitz.
That's great.
Yep. But again, now you're going to have the have and have nots. If you have a team that doesn't have well, let's be honest, a hunter, a mage, or a shaman, or a evoker, you won't have Lust on your team. I think that's a pretty slim margin, but I can still see it happening.
Yeah, I mean that's well, there we go. That's the big point. You know, is it going to be a problem in the sense that whoever doesn't? But I get it's not actually. I don't think so. I think it'll only depend on when you use it. It'll be up. I think maybe once or twice. No, it'll be only once, surely.
No,
The games are really short.
Yeah.
Oh, and in the Blitz, the games are like, yeah, you probably can only lust once a game anyway.
5 minutes, yeah, maybe.
Well,
I think that's the only thing. Like, I'm just saying, if they don't have an algorithm that ensures that there's a Lust class on both sides, I could see there being, a clear winner at that first clash, where one team lusts and the other team will just melt. So, if drums worked, I guess that's the only. But then you'd have to have somebody that has drums. So, meh. Well, anyways, we'll see. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You're talking about a 5-minute game and then you're back into queue. So long as queues are fast, it doesn't really matter. If queues are going to be 30 minutes long, like they are for RSS, then I can see it being an issue.
Yeah, that'll be difficult. We'll see. Hopefully it's popular.
Yeah, I hope so too. I personally am going to play it. I don't know. Big, are you going to play the new Blitz?
Yeah, I think so. I think it sounds like a fun way to spend time.
Yeah, I
For
think
sure.
so. I'm not going to
Definitely
ask
give it
you,
a go.
Jake, because I know you're
I might come back. I might come back. I might come back and play it. I think there's a high chance that I will do. I think it's just one of those things where I think I'll try season 3 and see how it is, but it sort of depends on how things in Wrath are going, because as I've said multiple times, I just enjoy it. Like I just feel at peace. I feel calm.
At peace.
He's at Zen with the arena.
Exactly.
Yes.
Love it. Last one here, just a great little piece of news. Raikou ended up outing a bot writer on Twitter. So kudos to Raikou for finding that. If you guys saw this or not. But yeah, I guess the number one solo shuffler in the world, Scripter, they had a conversation, and apparently he's Swedish. So anyway, finding out that he's the bot seller for or he's author, that he's selling the Pokemon Rodcat, Lone Tar Healer creatures. It's all the same guy. So yeah. So that's the person to send hate mail to if you yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
It's really it's so crazy how pervasive it is. Like
Mhm.
I know Jake, you've kind of been out of the retail scene, but
Mm.
man, like it, it's the bots are among us. Let's just say that they're everywhere.
Well, you say that though,
Yeah.
but apparently they're in Wrath as well. Genuinely, I'm not going to lie to you. There are multiple times where I'm playing, and as a feral, like I want to shred. I want to be behind someone. I want to be pressing
Oh
shred on them.
yeah.
That's my big thing. But it feels like when I'm chasing the person, they're both facing me and hitting the person in front of them all the time. And I keep saying to my arena partner, like, dude, I swear this guy's botting. I swear this guy's botting. His movement's so weird. Everything feels so weird. So you don't know, you never know with these people. Like it genuinely feels like some people are like facing me to get the dodge and the parry, as well as hitting my teammate. And it's kind of like, well, what is going on at this stage? Like, it's just mental.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw some of the clips of like paladins never getting gouged. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
mental.
I mean, let's be honest. Bots existed back in original Wrath, like kickbots and regular, Honor Buddy worked then too, right? So, is it really that surprising that there's bots today?
No,
I think what's surprising is how much the bots play your character.
Yes.
That's the thing that's crazy. As kickbotting is one part of a bot these days. They press every
Mhm.
single ability.
True.
So like that mage video that's linked in the show notes, like that mage, I'm pretty sure is just moving their character. They're not
Yep.
doing anything else.
Yeah. Well, positioning is half the game, right?
I guess. Yeah.
All right. I think that's about it. Shout outs. Big.
Who do I want to shout out?
I don't know.
question.
Shout out to Calvish and Whaler for winning that tournament because that was really fun.
All right.
And they played really well.
I like it. Jake.
I'm gonna shout out my Twitter community for sticking with me for 85 days, tweeting about looking for some communication from a dedicated PvP Twitter for giving news. I think I have a feeling that I'll be going to the next BlizzCon holding up a sign that says 400 days, asking for the thing that I've done. I genuinely, guys, and you can quote me on this. If it gets to next BlizzCon and they still haven't done something about it, I will come to BlizzCon. I will hold that sign up and I will edit it every single day for those 2 days. And I'll hold that sign up, and that's just who I'm going to be. I'll be there saying, I'm looking for PvP communication. That's what it's going to be. So, yeah, shout out to the guys that continue to retweet me and continue to put that out into the X sphere, Twitter sphere, whatever it is.
I love it. Are you just gonna sit on the front steps of the Orc with a sign saying,
I'm going to be in every single event holding that sign up. I'm going to be at the Q&A panel. It's going to be there. I'm going to be at the LAN event. Like, it's going to be there up.
Mhm.
I'm going to be in front of Super Tees. I'm going to get Super Tees to let me stand there and put it up. And I'm just going to be stood there. I'm just that guy. In like 20 years time, then you're like, oh, you remember red shirt guy? Yeah. Do you remember placard PvP placard guy? PvP Paul?
PvP placard guy.
Yeah, that's him. That's that guy. That'll be me. I'll just be there everywhere. Like I'm just in every shot, just slowly. It's kind of peeking through.
I can't wait to see the memes that come out of this, like in 15 years. It's gonna be that.
Yeah, legit.
It'll be like the change my mind, but it'll be Jake standing with a sign behind Supa.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna do a quick shout out actually to the community management team over at Blizzard for seeing the great work that Big does and giving Big a media pass for BlizzCon. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
I think
sweet.
huge shout out to them for that and recognizing all the hard work you do, buddy. So
Thank you.
I think actually, yeah, Big, do you want to close us out?
Oh, I can do that. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. And also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord.
Also, you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. And as always, links for everything we talked about are going to be in the show notes. I want to thank everybody for listening. Good night, all.
Good night.
See ya.